What is going on, guys? Welcome back to another Learn episode with Pat. Sorry, I'm always, every time I'm recording one of these, I swear they start working outside. Same exact time every time. All right, but anyway, today we are going to integrate a Prisma to-do list in Next.js. So I've got a blank folder. I'm just going to pop it in here. We're going to do npx create Prisma. We're going to go ahead and update everything, make sure we are good to go. So let's do that. npx create next app at latest dot slash. Let's see. TypeScript, yes, sure. It's all the stuff I did. I just answered yes to all these things. Yes, and then no for source directory, yes for app router, no for import alias. So while that's downloading, let me go ahead and get all of our Prisma commands ready. Basically, it's just going to be npm install Prisma, and then we need to initialize the file. But I guess before doing that, let me just run dev and show you guys where we are at right now. So it's just a normal Next.js application. And get this set up. Here we go. Localhost 3001. Oh, I see. I have another server running somewhere. Let me cancel that one. Let's see. Boom. Okay. Try that one more time. npm run dev, and we'll go back to server 3000. Should be running and popping up here shortly. But what is Prisma? Why do we want to use it? It's an ORM, which is Object Relational Mapper. And here's our application on the right. The reason why we want to do it is it's really easy to shape the data. And especially if you're using a mono repo, it's amazing. MongoDB Compass is asking for an update. We're not going to do that, but let's just do this. Why use Prisma? Prisma unlocks a new level of developer experience when working with databases. This is their website, prisma.io. So feel free to pop in, check out the the documentation. Just go here in their docs. Prisma ORM, database platform. Boom. Works great with TypeScript, right? Node.js and TypeScript. That's kind of their whole shtick. But anyway, so let's kind of prep for this to-do list a little bit. We're going to go to our page in our app directory. Let me close all of this, and we're just going to build some divs. No problem here, and boom. So class name with full, we'll say flex, justify center, item center. And boom, now we're in the middle of this screen, just like that. I'm gonna put an H1 here, and we'll say to-do list. Last name will say text XL. Guys, I have Tailwind installed, so that's why it's just easily doable like this. So boom, to-do list, font bold, all that. We're gonna go ahead and put an input field here. Actually, we don't even need to wrap it in a div. We'll just do this, px8, py3, excuse me. BG, let's see, we'll say slate 100, and we'll do rounded 2XL. So just kind of round those corners off a little bit, and we need to go to our parent div, and we need to do flex-call just to make our items stacked up and down, just like that. So that's great. We have our actual input here, so I'll add a little placeholder, right? We'll say enter to-dos here. Enter to-dos here. Maybe we don't want px8, but px4. Guys, just doing a brief, you know what I mean? Brief, what's it called? Brief CSS. So, and now I'm going to build a button right next to it that's going to say just add or something. We'll say background, maybe blue 500. Let's see what we have here. You can see how it's not exactly what we wanted, but we just style it up a little bit. Boom, here we go. Add like this, shadow XL. I'll put a little plus sign, and we actually want the input to be wrapped with the button. So I want the button to the right of it. Right now it's obviously to the left, so I'm going to wrap both those elements in a div, and we're going to say class flex and then gap x2 just to give them a little space. So we have a little to-do list, and I just want to add an action. You can see where I'm clicking the button, nothing's happening, or at least visually nothing's happening. So I'm just going to real quick just add active, scale 90, and add a transition. So now when I click, boom, I can see me click. That's it. And that's pretty much all we need for the to-do list. And then maybe I'll add just the actual to-do list below. So let me steal this H1 here, and then we're gonna get into the juicy stuff, which is gonna be our Prisma stuff. So this is gonna be our actual to-dos down here, and this will be a list of our to-dos. And we'll need to build those out. Those will end up looking like little cards or something. Actually, I'll just call this the list. How about that? So, but let's go ahead and kind of build for Prisma. So we have roughly enough. Well, actually, while we're here, just background gray with, actually we'll go gray 600. Let's see that with padding 3, rounded XL, I believe, or 2XL, one of the two. Oh, let's see. Sorry guys, trying to build this out as fast as possible. I don't want it that huge, gosh. Okay, so width full, let's see, class name, we'll say width 1/2 and then flex. Justify center, item center, so it should line up that list thing right in the middle. Boom, just like that. Okay, so now we have our to-dos with a list right next to it and a card. You know, however you want to style this up, but the biggest thing with Prisma and the biggest thing with integrating new tech, I always want to do like a simpler app, like a to-do list, just like a POC. POC stands for proof of concept. Reason is because if you can do it on a small scale, you could definitely do it on a larger scale. So here's our to-do list. Let's see, margin top 8, just cleaning it up a bit. So all I want to do is just have us write whatever. Text is all white there, so we're going to say text black. One more thing. So all I want to do is just be able to write whatever, hit add, clears out the to-do list, adds it to our list, but we want to do it through Prisma. So let's go ahead and integrate Prisma now. Close that out. Why use Prisma? We know to use it. So our first commands are going to be npm install Prisma and npx Prisma init. And what that's going to do is obviously install all of our dependencies, and then we should see a Prisma folder pop up here. I've got 3 drinks on the side. I've got my water, my coffee, and then sparkling water. So here's our Prisma folder. And let's take a look at it. We're going to get this file, this schema. And what the schema it does 3 things. One, it generates our Prisma, or excuse me, our database instance. So if you're using like a MongoDB, a Postgres, a SQL, we have like all of these things. So we can actually go to this provider tab and we can hit control space, and you can see all the databases we can actually choose from. Do you want to use a SQL Server, SQLite, Postgres, MySQL, MongoDB? That's what we're using in the Code Chronicles, or CockroachDB. I've never used it. For this, we're going to use SQLite. So it creates a database instance again. The other thing it does, let me pull up what else we need to do. We can generate our models. So if we want model do, we can have a to-do ID, which is going to be this with an add ID and at default and auto increment. Boom. So what this is it's defining our schema or our data model. So like the shape of our to-do, we'll have like to-do name, right? String, boom. And then we can also have to-do is completed or something. I'm very verbose with my naming where I'll write down to do. Some people, they'll just say ID here, right? Instead of explicitly saying to do ID. I like to be verbose, but to each his own. But so here in Prisma, we're doing a few things, right? We're defining, and we'll actually make this a conditional, meaning we don't have to pass that object in, but we're defining the data model of our to-do. So we want a to-do, like an ID associated with our to-do. We always want an ID associated to our data. And then also the other things, like you can add to this, you might have a to-do name, you might be like to-do date, like when you built the to-do maybe. There's things you can add. But for now, we'll just stick with predominantly these two, just to-do ID and to-do name. But if you want to add some other things, to-do is completed, to-do date, to do maybe author, like the person who wrote the to-do, you would do it all here. And there's tons of other things you can add to it, but let's just start again with these two. I think will be easiest. So Prisma, what it does, we can create our database instance, so we can connect to a database. We can generate the contract for our to-do. So when we do these other commands, I'll show you guys in a sec, we can actually have our types come from Prisma. So we're using it as a contract generator. And then the third thing is we can define our data models, which is, maybe I should have explained it the other way, right? So we can build the instance, the database instance, then we can define our data models. And then the third kind of thing is we can actually use it as a contract as well. So in our page, when we end up building out posting to-dos, and we're gonna use Axios for this too, but let's say function add to-do, right? We're gonna end up importing from Prisma this to-do. So when we send it to our Axios endpoint, we're gonna make sure that the payload matches this model. So it'll make more sense as we do it. So let's go ahead and start doing this. The other thing we just wanted to make sure your provider's on SQLite for this. And then we need to go to our environments, our .env over here. Here's gonna be what just comes in: Postgres, John Doe, random password. Delete that and paste this in. We just wanna use a dev database real quick, just a fake SQLite, and then I'll have a tutorial on how to use MongoDB or Postgres or something. So the next command we wanna do is do this. We want to npx Prisma generate. And what this is gonna do is just update our Prisma contracts to make sure whatever Prisma is doing, that it's all associated to this new information, because what mine started on, what it was defaulted on was Postgres, or I forget, was it Postgres or CockroachDB or something? But we just want to make sure that we update it and generate the contract. That's kind of like saying command save. Oh, do that npx Prisma generate. That's what the command is. So that's going to be the very first thing. And the second thing is you want to do npx Prisma migrate dev -- name init. So boom, we have our migration, applying migration, and don't quote me on this. I believe what that's doing is making sure we're migrating over to the SQL database, the SQLite. Your database is now in sync with your schema. Yeah, or maybe the first command generates the contracts, the second one aligns with the schema in total. But I really thought the Prisma generate did that. So, but anyway, you definitely want to make sure you use the migrate command. That's for sure. Next thing, we want to install npm install Prisma client. So that's what this looks like. And we're going to build out some endpoints in a second. So let's do this. We're going to npm run dev now. And Prisma client, this is just how we can build our instance for Prisma. So if we build a new directory while our server's restarting, let's build a directory, right? So we'll say pages, and then we'll do a new folder. We'll call this API within our pages directory, and click on this API. And this is now where you can add your to-do endpoint. So we'll do to-do or even TS. And then I'm gonna go to our task manager project, and I'm actually gonna pull in the project management system. I'm gonna pull in a little bit of a schema that we're using for our APIs. So if I pull over this project, obviously there's a lot more built out. We have all these different endpoints in our API folder. So this is our entire API folder where there's notification system, the project system, the task system, the user system, or these services rather. So I'm gonna go ahead and just pull up any of them, and we're gonna wanna steal this handler. It's gonna be the biggest thing. Oh, well, actually, we're gonna want all of this. So I'll do this and pop that off to this side. And let me explain this crypto ID real quick. The next API request and response, this is for our types. So we wanna make sure we're type safe. This import Prisma client from @Prisma client. That's what we just downloaded earlier, just 2 seconds ago with npm install @Prisma client. And then we want to build a Prisma. Let me comment this out. And I can even get the crypto out of there. With the Prisma client, when we say const Prisma, and we're going to bring that crypto thing back. I just wanted to focus solely on this. So const Prisma, you can name it whatever you want, but we need to instantiate the actual Prisma clients, or create a Prisma client instance. So you could call this Prisma, you could call this my special variable name, right? Like, doesn't matter, but I'll just stick to Prisma. Then we want our handler, and this handler is going to, let's delete all these things. It's just gonna deal with whatever request method that we're doing. So if we're doing a post, when we click add to do, that's going to be a post request. So we want to change this actually from put to post, and we want to build a function now that's going to reflect that. So instead of update tasks, again, we just pulled it in just from what's it called, from Shoot, I'm brain farting right now from the project management systems. We obviously don't want that. What we want to do is build these async functions. You can see I'm getting a lot of tab 9 help here, where it's to do, and we have that request, API response, and boom. And we actually want to export this because we're going to end up using this somewhere else. So we have export async function to do. What we also want to do is build a try catch block here. And we're going to have two things that can happen, right? We're going to try to create a to-do in this Prisma instance. And if it doesn't, then we'll throw an error. And really, we don't even need a try catch block. We can do that after or before. So, but the biggest thing I want you guys to focus on is having a const, we'll call this a to-do ID. And this to-do ID is going to be generated from that import crypto from crypto. And all this is going to do is just generate a new random UUID. Actually, I don't think we need to do new. Yeah, it's just crypto.random UUID. So this is what's going to generate our to-do ID. So it's just going to be a random bit of numbers and strings and characters. So it's going to be random and unique every time. The second thing we want to do, I believe, is build a to-do. So const to-do equals await Prisma. Let's see, should be, or Prisma, excuse me, to-do dot create. And then we want to instantiate it, put in our object, and this is where we can put in our data. So this needs to model our Prisma schema, whatever that might be. So this data endpoint, right? We need a to-do ID. So I'll pop that in there and we need to define it. We're going to define it by this to-do ID we're creating. So boom, to-do ID, like to-do ID. And it's throwing an error because we actually need to make sure this is a string. So let's do this, boom, string. Should get rid of that error. Oh, it's actually, it's right there. So that's not going to work. Sorry guys. So then maybe we can try number. And then we need to do name. And we don't have to do name, so we need to pull that in. And guys, the only reason why we need this is just because we defined it here. So again, if you have like to do author or things like this, then you're going to need to also include this here, or you're going to need to make it conditional where, so for instance, if we do this now and make this conditional and regenerate the contract. Oh, not Prisma migrate, forgive me. Let's cancel that real quick. But Prisma generate, npx Prisma generate. This should stop throwing an error and boom, just like that. So, but we really do want to include a to-do name. Oh, and it's going to throw a different error, I should say, which is the error it's throwing is going to be const. We need a to-do name from the rec.body. So boom, that should be that. But we really do want to have that be not conditional. Sorry guys. That is roughly going to be the outline of our post to do. And then we also want to have a get function or a fetch kind of thing. So a case, we're going to have our get case, and this is going to be get to do's. So I believe, let me just double check one of these endpoints real quick. Yeah, it's a get. Okay. Just wanted to make sure. Let's cancel out of this Prisma schema. We're not going to mess with this anymore. Let's save and get out of there. And we're getting a red underline again because we just need to create that endpoint. So I'm going to copy this one down and paste in the get to do's. And all this one is going to be to do's and Prisma, instead of to do create, we're going to find many is what it's going to be. So Prisma.to-do, and let's say find many. And boom. And then all we actually need to do is res.send to do's. Those are the two endpoints that we need to build. And the fancy thing that we don't want to skip out on, or I should say, these are kind of like the core elements of what we need, right? Well, I guess res.send, got this part, boom, to do. But the things that we kind of want to consider is wrapping these in try catch blocks. So you don't have to do this, but to start kind of making it a little bit more nicer, you might want to consider doing this. So res.status 200, even these are kind of additional things, right? So res.status 200, and then for this one we could throw an error, right? Console, and then even do res.status 500, right? And I believe set a message error with to do or something, right? On what's going on, folks. Boom. Okay, so, and then likewise with our post to do, probably a good idea to wrap it in a try catch. And let's go ahead and pop this down here. Okay, oh, forgot the closing bracket. Here we go, boom. So res.send.todo, we want to return res.status 200 to the server. Let the server know worked great. And then we'll steal the same res.status 500 and console log the error if that to do doesn't get posted. So that is going to be a strong post and get to dos, I believe. I believe this should work. So let's now go to our front end and we're going to npm install Axios and the types /Axios. So at types /Axios, let's npm run dev. And I'm going to import Axios from Axios so we can access that. You could use your fetch request as well. I'm just not the quickest at setting the headers and things like that. So I just opt to Axios. And what we want to do, this is going to be running on this localhost endpoint. All of these endpoint add to do, we want to do Axios, and you can see where it's starting to do this or starting to give us some IntelliSense help. I'm going to steal this endpoint. We're going to say HTTP 3000, right? HTTP semicolon //3000, right? You can even define this as a URL. That's fine. It's like the global, right? We'll say like backend URL. Something like this, boom. And it's gonna go here. Oh, const backend URL, it's gonna go here. And then we're actually going to embellish upon it. So let's make it these backticks. And I'll go ahead and wrap it in curlies, boom, backend URL. And I'm gonna pull out the backslash. So just backslash right here. And this is where we're gonna follow our backend URL. And let's just see if this is even working, right? The API pages directory. So we'll do backslash over here, pages /API /to-dos. And let's see what we get. Oh, I don't know if I need the pages. Let's try API /to-do. Oh, to do, got it. Okay, so I just want to make sure that this is working, and it is. Oh, not my Azure. No, sorry, gonna go to localhost. So me going to this pages or this API /to-do, I know it's working because it's not throwing an error. So if I go to a different endpoint, it'll throw 404, this is not found, because it doesn't exist. But this is actually the data from this to-do, or it will be the array of data that we can access, like no different than looking at a Postman endpoint or something. So we do know it's working, which is awesome. And this is going to be the endpoint we want to ultimately chase down for our post function and our get function. We're declaring the backend URL right here. So I just need this part, the API /to-do. So /API /to-do. And that's going to be add to do function. The last thing we also want to include is the payload. So if we go back to our schema, or even our endpoint, our to-do endpoint, it's going to receive something from the body and it's going to be to-do name. We don't need to pass the to-do ID in the payload because the to-do ID is being generated on the back end. But it does need a to-do ID according to our schema. So we do need it on this payload, but not from the front end. This payload, we just need the to-do name. So that doesn't exist yet. We're going to go ahead and build that out. So we'll say import use state, boom. And we'll say const to-do name and set to-do name. And we're obviously going to put this into our, into input right here. So I'll say value equals what? Our to-do name. So that's where our input's obviously going to be linked up to. And then we need an on change equals this. And we'll set to-do name to e.target.value. So I need to put E in there as well. So now whenever I type in an input, I think many people probably know how to do this a lot faster than I do. But let's see. Oh, so we have import use client. We're getting an error because we're on a server side component. So let's go ahead and just put use client at the top of the file. And this should take care of this error. So boom. Now, all this did for setting up the to-do and the value, it just sets our to-do to this variable. So boom, anytime we type, now we have access to that variable. And we're just simply passing that variable into here. We could also pass it into the function here, not a problem. Our add to do, we just want to put that on our button here. So on click, boom, add to do. We can do this and say to do, and that should set us up pretty good. So we'll declare it as a string or instantiate this with a double quotes here. That would, I think, fix that error as well. Yep, it would. So either or, tomato, tomato. And yeah, so that's roughly our add to do function working. Let's give it a go. And the last thing I want to do, if this is successful, I just want to set to dos to empty. So after I put in a new to do, click the button, should post. Let's see if it worked. It obviously did not. To do ID is available, unknown argument to do ID, available, okay. So we'll change that endpoint. Instead of doing a random crypto UUID, we declared it as an integer in our schema. I'm just gonna do a new date timestamp is what we'll end up doing. So new date, let's see how this goes, boom. And all of this, I can actually just declare as a number. Let's see if that works and we can get rid of the crypto ID. Don't need that. Let's try that. API resolved. Without sending a response for API to do. Hold on guys, we're gonna figure it out. Let's go ahead and crash the server. Sometimes it just needs a little refresh. So next dev to do, and let's see. I'm gonna pull up a console log, see what responses we're getting. So we're compiled. Not too worried about these layout errors or tiny things like that. So I posted, let's see, async post to do, add async handle library conversion, value, boom, to int column, try the, okay. So let's maybe not pass that in and see if our schema can just handle that for us and auto increment. I think it does. I think that's what the auto increment is. So yeah, I think it will. Okay, so let's try this one more time. To do and fire it off. Let's see. Compiled, cleared. I think it worked because it got to the clear section. So let's go to our API to do and let's refresh. And there she is. Perfect. So this is acting as our like database. Obviously it's not set up properly, but it's a SQLite database where we can actually see some data. So yeah, so there it is. Let's, I guess, show, now the last thing we need to do is show that down here because we're just hard coding the to-do right here. Yeah, so it's gonna be a similar thing. We wanna Axios fetch all this stuff. We're gonna pull in a use effect hook and I'm gonna put it here, instantiate it, put an object, a dependency array in there, and boom. Let's do Axios, or better yet, I'll build out a function for it. So Axios function, we'll say get to-dos. We don't need to pass anything into the actual function. And it's gonna be an Axios. We're gonna steal that Axios post request. And it's gonna be axios.get. We don't need the payload. So let's delete that off. And this should be our response. So we'll say const response equals this. Did I spell response right? I did. And finally, we need to build a list, an array of to-dos. And I'll set to-dos. And this is going to be a list. Ooh, guys, this is where we can import our Prisma client and define the types of our list. But you don't have to do that if you just want to start it as an array. That's completely fine. But I'm going to do the extra work here and just say I want my to-do from Prisma client. And let's say your to-do name isn't going to be just a to-do. It's actually going to be a partial to-do. So you can define your stuff like that. And then here we're going to say to do and an array of to-dos. So now let's see, what's our error? It's not a parameter of string undefined. I guess we could do undefined as well, right? How does that work? It should be a partial, I believe, right? Okay, well, we'll cross that bridge in a sec. Strings, that's fine, but we do want to have an array of to-dos when we're showing that data. That's what we do know. So that's what I mean when Prisma is really powerful, is one, it connects your database. So that's huge, right? You can make your database instance right here. You can choose 5 different databases, in 0.2 seconds, right? So that's huge. The second thing is you can easily define your data models and relationships. And then the third thing is you can actually pull in those data models and define them as your types. So it's huge. It's very, very, very good. But yeah, so we want to get this response in our get to do's function. We're going to say set to do's to the response right here. Boom. And we're going to pass this get to do's function right here in our use effect. So just on landing, on page load, we want to go ahead and fetch those to do's. And then we should have them here. And with those to do's, we can go ahead and map out a component. So to do, and it'll just be this component right here that we built out. And the reason why we're getting an error is because we need a key associated to each to-do card. So I'll say to-do dot to-do ID. That'll be our key. And let's refresh. Let's see if we set that all up proper. If we did, we should see our to-do list, our actual to-do. Nice. And that's our actual to-do, I believe. So we'll put test. Let's try it out. And then finally, we'll also want to get to-dos after we add a to-do. But let's just see if this works. Boom. So we have 2 to-dos. Oh, and then I need to change this instead of to do. It needs to be to do dot to do name. So we should see that, and then obviously add a little bit of margin between them. Let's see, and we'll clean it up a whole bunch. So margin -4, margin -2, my2. So that's our to-do list. And after we add a to-do, we can also get more to-dos. So let's test it out. Boom, there it is. Boom. And if we go to our endpoint, we should see all of those. And there it is, to-do ID, to-do name, to-do ID, to-do name. Just like that, folks. A few things just to optimize the build here. We can go ahead and pull all of this into what I'll call a render template. We'll say to-do list, and we can go ahead and define that to-do list up here. And what it's gonna be is just an arrow function, return, and make some fragments, boom, and that's our to-do list. So now if we need to handle anything in our to-do list, we go there. And up here, we can also define this as our to-do inputs or to-do input. It's just one input right now, so that'd technically be better naming, tomato. And I'll do the same thing, wrap it in fragments. You also don't necessarily have to, I just have a habit of doing that. And nothing's changed, it's just for developer experience maintain. So we can kind of close these out and make our project look a lot cleaner. Or you know, those might be components somewhere. You might pass them in as component. Yeah, that is how to build a to-do list. And there's other things you can do as well. So obviously, if we just keep building these out, we're just going to keep having more and more to-dos. So maybe one thing we want to consider is building a delete endpoint. And there's a few ways to do that. So I can show you guys that now. Might as well. So we're going to drop down a case and we want to say delete. There's 2 ways to do it. One, we can update from the parameters, like pass in a parameter, or we can pass in the ID through. I'm going to show you guys the parameter fashion actually, just because I think it'll be more useful to know that. So you could do the same thing, go to to-dos API, but we want to build a new directory. And we'll say it's an individual to-do that we're talking about. Now, we're not talking about to-dos. Because this to-dos, technically this shouldn't be named to-do, this should be named to-dos, and we'll need to change our endpoints real quick to API/to-dos. And the reason why is because we're dealing with all the to-dos. When we post, it's posting to all the to-dos. When we fetch the to-dos, it's talking about all the to-dos. So that's technically a better name for it. And then when we talk about deleting, we're talking about deleting one to-do. So what I actually want to do is build a directory called to-do, because now we're talking about one to-do. And then I want to build a to-do ID just like this in our parameter. So it's to-do ID and then .ts in brackets. This is huge. I'm going to copy down our to-do endpoint. Let's go ahead and do that. Something to do, right? And we have a copy of our to-do endpoint, and we're just going to go ahead and say, let me get rid of this delete, or this get function, excuse me. And this is going to be delete, and we'll say delete to do. And we want to pass in the to do ID from the rec. And all this is it's going to be the same thing we named it here is what we need to name this. Not paramas, excuse me, to do param. And forgive me, I forget in Next router, it's actually .query, not params. But the query or the to-do parameter that we ultimately need is going to be this. And I'll show you guys what that is. Basically, if we do this and do \1, we should get the to-do that's like labeled ID 1 if we had that endpoint, but we don't have that up right now, so it shouldn't actually work. We can build it really quick, and then, but let's finish this one out. The to-do that we want to delete right here is going to be a const to-do await Prisma, and we actually want to do delete. And the one we want to delete is going to be where we say to-do ID. I think we could just pass it in just like that, or to-do ID and wrap it, make sure it's a number. So we're going to delete that specific to-do. So that way when our endpoint passes in, oh, to-do doesn't exist anymore. It's actually \to-dos. I forgot we changed it. But yeah, that endpoint doesn't exist yet. We can also build a get to-do for one specific to-do. So let's go ahead and do that as well, so I can show you guys what I'm talking about. So boom, this, and we want to get to-do, and it's gonna be the same deal. Rec.query, we want to pull in the to-do ID because now we're talking about one to-do, not all of them. So when we go to to-dos and say / like ID 1, I just want to get this first to-do. So let's do this. We're gonna say find, I think we do find unique or find many. But I think this will work if we just do find unique, where to-do ID equals the to-do that we pass in. So let's go ahead and enter that and see if that fixes us. Oh, and I think the endpoint is going to be to-do /1. It will be. So there it is. And that's the, so now we have access to the to-dos that we're passing in the ID for. And we can also delete the to-dos that we pass in the ID for when we call this endpoint. So I'll show you what that looks like now on the front end. So we have that built out on the back end. Let's go ahead and go to our front end here, go to our page, and we want to go to our to-do list. So let's go back to this guy. This is going to be our to-do list, and this is where we want to delete each individual to-do. So I'll put like a red X or something over here. Maybe I'll pop the to-do name over here or something like that. So let's go to our to-do list where and let me reorganize this. But the to-do list is where these cards are, these to-do cards, I guess is what you can call them. And it's in our mapped function right here. So here's something we can do is say, well, I want the to-do name and to-do ID. And let's see, so I'll do like a span around this to-do. And let's see, boom, class name, I'll say opacity 50. We'll say flex with full, and we'll say justify between. This is just so I can deliberately show you guys the to-do ID that we're deleting. So I'm going to wrap this with a div, and then I'm going to, outside of the div, go to do, or this is going to be our delete button now. So I'll make a button, put a giant X there. We'll say class name red, BG red -500. We'll say padding 3, rounded. We'll keep the 2XL. Let's go ahead and refresh this. I think we should see all the updates here. Oh, nice. Okay. So padding 3, here's our to-do red X, and I'll go ahead and make it active again so we can see when we're pressing that. And I'll make it transition, all boom. Well, we're gonna make this a little bit more defined red. So now when we click it, nothing's happening, but we can just see the visual. What I wanna do is say on click, and this is where we wanna build a new function. So we'll say async function, and this is gonna be a delete to-do function. So delete to do, and what we want to pass in is to do ID, and this I believe is going to be a number. So delete to do, and we don't want to do response here, or we're not setting to dos. We're actually just firing off a void function. Delete to do, and it's going to be an axios.delete request, and it's going to go to \to do, and we're going to go to the \to do ID. That same thing that we set up our folder with, all of this structure. That's what we're naming here. So we're going to the \to do, and then we're going to use this parameter, which is going to be labeled to do ID or query. We actually don't need it as a response. So this should work just like this. The thing we need to add now is an on click. Oh, added too many things. Delete to do. And what do we want to pass in this delete to do? Our to do ID. Oh, that should fire it off. And then after we fire off a delete to do, we want to get to dos again. We want to freshen our list, right? So refresh the list. And yeah, let's see if this works. I think we built it out all proper, but let's just try. So delete, nice, and it worked. Sweet. So we can actually go to our database, if you will, and we should see it deleted out of there. So it's not just deleting on the DOM, it's actually deleting the data from Prisma. So that's awesome, guys. And those are most of our operations. Again, you could do an update function as well if you need to delete stuff. Let's refresh one more time. Boom. An update endpoint would be very similar. You want to, maybe it's a put request. So let's see, put, let's say update to do. Let's go ahead and boom, delete to do. And we want to change this to update to do. To do rec.query, you want that one. And you'll say where this, and then you pass in the name or whatever you want to update. So yeah, I hope that helps a lot. Please mess around, get into what's it called? Get into Prisma, because it's a beautiful ecosystem. We actually don't want to. We want to find an update, I believe, unique or update. Yeah, I think that's how to do it for updating a to do. But if not, throw it in ChatGPT, figure out what you guys need to figure out, read the docs, and yeah. But overall, here's a to-do list associated with Prisma, TypeScript, Next.js, Axios, and I would say good design patterns or maintainable design patterns, roughly. Yeah, I hope it helps. I hope it helps. Thank you guys so much for watching. I am excited for the next one. I got some more content on the way per usual. All right, folks. And feel free to leave comments if there's gaps where maybe I went too quick or if there's something I need to kind of iron out. So, but that's the Prisma tutorial. And thank you so much for watching. Cheers.